It's my pleasure to kick off this morning's session. I'm Sandra Mullen. I'm the Senior Vice President for Policy Advocacy Communication here at Vital Strategies, and welcome to our office for those who haven't been here before, and welcome to New York City for everybody who's traveled from across the world to be at our obesity prevention partner meeting, which I think was great the last 2 days. I actually told Nina I thought it was the best one yet. You agree? Okay, so if Paula agrees, then it really was the best one yet. Really inspiring talks by many people, many of you in this room. And so I think we're all energized. And it's just perfect that today we have a conversation between two of the colleagues of many of you. So let me just first start by just saying a few things. I'm told to say a few things about Vital Strategies, so let me do that and also introduce this series. So I think this is the third of our Vital Talks series where we try to talk about we try to bring together experts from health and development to examine what we think of as the greatest public health challenges of our time and try to move the conversation on these issues. We also hope that while the conversation will be rich in this room, that perhaps people will make connections that they can take out of the room and continue to network and talk to each other and to collaborate. So previously we did a talk on NCDs and epidemic preparedness, bringing Dr. Tom Frieden, the head of our Resolve to Save Lives initiative, to be our kickoff speaker. And most recently we did a talk on the U.S. overdose crisis. As many of you may know, Vital Strategies is working with a couple of partners in the U.S., Johns Hopkins and Pew, along with Bloomberg Philanthropies, to really push forward on the issue of overdose with a special attention being paid to the opioid epidemic. So we're very excited about that. And just this week we kicked off with the state of Pennsylvania, and there's quite a bit of press coverage about all of the activities that are going to be taking place in Pennsylvania in the coming years. So very, very excited about that. Today's topic is on the fight against obesity, and the issue is certainly very controversial in many of the countries in which we're working, because we're really pushing the envelope, as we would say, really pushing on things that the industry doesn't like at all. And we talked about that a lot in the last few days. And there's a lot of brave souls in this room. I want to especially thank our two speakers today, Alejandro Calvillo Unna and Paula Johns, for leading us in what will be no doubt hopefully provocative and productive conversation. They're both heroes to me, both because of the amazing work that Alejandro has done with colleagues in Mexico. And Paula and I have gone back a dozen years or so, where she did a lot of work. Initially, I knew through tobacco, but she works on a variety of issues in Brazil and is really a leading advocate in Brazil and around the world. So thanks also to everybody who's here in the room, and please feel free to vigorously participate in the conversation that will be generated by the conversation between Paula and Alejandro. So just a quick thing about Vital Strategies. We are interested in making rapid progress against obesity, which we know is a key driver of various diseases. And in addition to our work in obesity control, we work in 73 countries around the world on other issues, including road safety, road crashes, other leading causes of injury and death. I mentioned tobacco. I mentioned our work in overdose, and we're also working on air pollution, environmental health issues, and many, many others. We're driven by the belief that every person deserves to be protected by a strong public health system, and we try to turn that belief into action by bringing the best of public health thinking to design solutions that can scale rapidly and improve the lives of millions of people. So that's just a little pitch about us and what we're trying to do. And I don't want to say much more. I just want to say a few words about Alejandro, who is the founder and director of Mexico's El Poder del Consumidor, which means, for those of you who don't understand Spanish, the power of the consumer. Alejandro will start us off with a presentation on how Mexico, where more than 70% of the population is overweight or obese, defied the powerful beverage industry and succeeded in passing a soda tax that has successfully reduced consumption. And I'll talk to you about those data. After Alejandro gives his presentation, Paula Johns, who's the director of Brazil's ACT Health Promotion, will join him on stage and lead us in a discussion on efforts to promote healthier food and to reduce obesity in Brazil and in Latin America. Alejandro and Paula's bios are in your program, so I won't say much more at this point. We will have Q&A at the end of the sessions, as I mentioned before. So please participate as much as you can in that discussion. So let me first bring Alejandro to the stage. You ready? Yes. Okay, great. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you for the invitation to Vital Strategies. My English is not very good, but I will try to do the better. And I have at the beginning 10 minutes to do this talk, and I sent about 40 slides. And I asked for 15 minutes, and I have 30 slides. I hope to show, because all the campaigns, I think we can explain the campaigns through image. And for me, it's very important to show it. And this, as you know, Mexico was one of the first country that established an important soda tax, no, to a great population, more than 100 million people, no. But something that is important to understand is that when we began this campaign, no, El Poder del Consumidor, the consumer power, had an important legitimacy in this issue. No, before we began to work to promote the soda tax, we have 7 years before working on promoting healthy food inside schools, no, with documents, but also we use many times some demonstrations, no, image to create. This is a carrot and an apple in front of the Minister of Education, saying how much money you want that we give you, no, to be inside the schools, because the great corporations like Coke, PepsiCo give money, and the Minister of Education at this moment say, this help us to maintain some areas of the school and something like that. No? But also we do some actions. This was some famous, no, about the Young Food Cartel, no, with Tony the Tiger, Ronald McDonald, all these personages, no, that promote, no, through the kids. No, in Mexico, kids between 12 to 14 years old knows more Tony the Tiger than the leaders of the independence in Mexico, for example. No, this gives an idea about how is this colonization, no, young food colonization of people in our country. Something very important also as the legitimation of our organization in this process is to create a great alliance, because many organizations want to work in this issue, also from environmental organizations that work for water rights, for children's rights. Everybody connect in this issue of healthy food. And we work together because we have the same goals, no, in 3 areas, no, or in 3 sectors. One is the academic sector. The National Institute of Public Health was promoting this kind of policy for many years, no, and they give us all the data, the strong data to promote our policies. The other is people working in the Congress, Polythink, a group that is working, doing lobby for social goals, no, and us doing the public work, no, the pressure to promote these policies, to create public opinion, and to pressure the politicians to go for these policies. And we began, no, studying the problem, and the problem in Mexico is terrible. No, we have 1 of every 3 Mexican children and 7 of every 10 adults are overweight or obese. No, about 75,000 amputations per year related with diabetes. No, the increase of death from from diabetes came from, in 2000, from 46,000 people died by diabetes. In 2016, 16 years after, more than double this quantity of people that die by diabetes to more than 106,000 people die by diabetes. This is increasing very, very fast. And we saw about the data that came from the academy that one of the policies that could have more effect is to increase the cost of the products, is the taxes. And in this way, we began to use science and hard facts. We invite very well-known people around the world. I put two examples there, Dr. Lustig from California and Mario Nessel from New York. And we began to do academic forums with international experts and national experts to talk about taxes and the impact of this beverage. And we also learned through national pools the perception of population. And we found that the people support the soda tax when we asked that the revenue of the soda tax go to drinking fountains inside schools, because many of the schools in Mexico not have access. The kids not have access to drink waters in the hours that they are inside the schools. And this was a demand that we have 4 years before, when we began to talk about soda tax for drinking waters, because the government said we don't have money to drinking waters. Okay, put a tax to soda and move this money to the drinking fountains. This is the way that we develop a campaign. This chart looks some complex, but a summary of this is this one. You cannot create a change in society, in a social norm, for example, a tax. The people will not support a tax if they don't see that we need a tax. And first, we need to expose the human drama, and show that this human drama is coming worse in the future and now, and that we need to do something. And after do that, is to show who are the principal culprits of this situation. And this creates indignation. For us, indignation is very, very important. The people, in the case of soda, needs to know the risk, the damage that these drinks create to health, and specifically for kids. If this indignation is the most important to obtain your goal. And present a solution. And this moment, one of the solutions, we don't say that this the only solution, is part of many solutions, is the soda tax. We began to expose the human drama. You know that the Day of Death in Mexico is very traditional. And we found when we began that the last administration between 2006 to 2012, in 6 years, 500,000 people died by diabetes. When we found this data, we say it's very clear, this data, and we are in this photo in front of the building of the Minister of Health, talking about 500,000 of people that died by diabetes. And we began to identify it's a long process, this process to show the human drama. I expose the moments only. The second part was to identify the culprit. This campaign was a campaign that many people remember in Mexico after 6 years. And we don't have a lot of resources. We have only 7 or 8 billboards, and we have the campaign inside the metro and involving some buses inside the city. But the people never know how much sugar is inside a soda of Coke. That Coke is the beverage that is more drinking in Mexico. And this Coke of 600 milliliters have in the official spoon of Mexico, that is 5 grams, in the United States is 4 grams, but with 5 grams is 12 spoons of sugar. When the people saw in the billboard that this drink have 12 spoons of sugar, we also have is not here, yes. The second one, say, would you give them 12 spoons of sugar with a hand, no, of an adult giving, no? You need to create some culprit, no, in the adults, no? Why you are giving, no, to the kids 12 spoons of sugar? This in some way is criminal, no? And this have a very strong impact in the population. The Beverage Association of Mexico say this is not true, and we went out, okay, no? What is your data, no? You say that this have 63 grams of sugar, is more than 12 spoons of sugar. And we began to inform the public about all the quantity. This woman is with all the sugar that you eat when you drink one of these bottles a year, more than 34 kilograms a year. It's terrible, no, for the body and the organism, no? And we follow in identifying the culprit. This is the principal square of Mexico. We did this action without permission from the government. No, was a difficult situation with the police at this moment, and we say we need to inflate this big kind of diabetes, no? And using the Santa Claus that is used by Coke in the Christmas time. And we began to talk about the solution, no? A tax, on soda for drinking fountains in size 2, and we began to do this campaign. This campaign was banned by all the commercial TV, no? And in many areas we have the money to pay, no? And they don't give us a space, no? And immediately we make a denouncement with the Mexican Association for Free Information, no? That all these TV stations have a concession from the government, no? They can ban any kind of campaign, no? And we did this ad, no? And this is a long process that began in October of 2012, and at August, September of 2013, the Congress accepted the vote in favor of the soda tax that came at this moment from the executive power, because the executive power took this initiative and they proposed the soda tax. You know, it's 1 peso per liter. Now it's a little more because it has an adjustment with the inflation, no? And it's about 10% of the cost. And we have a reduction in average in the first years. That is the information that we have about from independent research, no? Of about 10% of consumption of. And something very important is that after Mexico passed the soda tax began to pass in many countries, UK, Portugal, India, Philippines, Catalonia, 6 cities in United States or 5 cities in United States. And some lesson learned is that it's very important to bring expert voices, in this process. This photo that is in the middle of this slide is very, very important. In the left side is a researcher from the National Institute of the Public Health. The woman in blue was the champion in the legislative power, a senator. The next two persons was a coordinator from the PAHO and the director of PAHO in Mexico, and I was in the right side as the civil society. You have the academy, legislators, international organization, and civil society. It's very important to have all these people come together, all these sectors. And something very important, the lesson is to respond very fast. If you are doing this campaign, you need to have the ability to respond very fast, because we began with these campaigns saying, oh, this tax is a proposal from Bloomberg that is supporting the consumer power, and Coke began to, Coke had more than 1 million places to sell Coke in Mexico, 1 million places to sell Coke. Each family that not have resources, but have a room that had the front to the street, they open the window or the door, and they began to sell, and the truck from Coke, from Pepsi, with Freddy Lights, the Bimbo came here, and all the obesogenic environment in these poor communities is very, very strong. And they began to do this campaign against us, and we respond that the tax came from experts, and we publish full pages in different newspapers saying the declaration from PAHO, from the OECD, from the reporter on right to food, from the Secretary of Health, not saying it's not Bloomberg, guys. This is a policy that came from all these international and national institutions, and began to not only to react, but also to show how the industry it was doing lobby in the Congress, and the interference of the industry. And we put some declaration from Margaret Chan, the General Secretary of OECD, and Oliver De Schutter, the rapporteur for the right to food. And we began to talk about the mosquitoes, the new mosquitoes, because Margaret Chan said that in the past the epidemics came from the mosquitoes, but the mosquitoes not have, she said the mosquitoes not have the money, and the lobbyists that the corporations have, and we said the lobbyists are the new mosquitoes, and also the people working in the Congress began to, indeed, with this campaign, asking the legislators, in which side are you, with the industry or with the public health? And the battles continues now. Was approved the soda tax, but in October of 2015, the industry tried to reduce the soda tax through the Congress. The last day of a meeting of the Commission of Finance, they introduced, nobody knows about that. This happened, I think, on Saturday. On Sunday, on Monday, we were in a press conference showing that they tried to reduce the soda tax to drinks that have more than less than 5 grams per 100 milliliters. And we began to see, and it means all the beverage to little kids that have non-caloric sweeteners together with sugar, and we went to a press conference and say, with these kind of products, they are creating the addiction to sweetened beverage on the kids. And we won this battle, and we began to talk about to increase the soda tax, because our proposal was to have a 20% soda tax, and the end we have a 10% soda tax, and we know with the experience of Philadelphia, Catalonia, and other places that is a tax of 20% or more is more effective, and we are trying to do that. And at this time, when we were working on it, we have the Pegasus case, that appears here in the New York Times. Simón Barquera from the National Institute of Public Health, Luis Manuel Encarnacion, that was working in the lobby with the Congress, and myself, we receive in our cell phones, like this. I don't know if they are making a transmission now to the Minister of Interior or to other people, but these have the control of your microphone, your camera, or your data. It's a very sophisticated malware that was bought by the Mexican government. And we have a denounced, and this is not working now. We hope that the new government do a research about it. But the only reason and the only explanation was that this information was going to these companies or to somebody very close to these companies. This is the situation. The soda tax is working. We want to increase, and we are moving to a front of pack leveling, one in front of pack leveling that is working very well in Chile, Peru, and is coming in Uruguay. And it's part of the work that we are developing with another colleagues, another organization, people from the academia, legislators, a very good network in America Latina. Thank you.
Feel free to have a seat over there.
Okay.
That was great. You have been through the entire playbook of how to pass a very difficult policy to pass that has a lot of opposition. I'm from Brazil, and in Brazil we have been really very much inspired by the Mexican experience, from the building a coalition to have a strong political voice, and I mean all the steps that we've been through. But thinking about like how we are going to build a movement in Latin America, I'd like to hear your thoughts. For example, we all know that the industry playbooks is very similar also in terms of like how the industry reacts against what we're doing. And then you mentioned at some point in your presentation that like you have to respond to the industry when necessary. Could you expand a little bit like what to respond and when not to respond and what to react to? Because I think that's sometimes a challenge that we have locally. How much do we go into just responding to what they're doing, and then how much we focus on our policy goals? Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's good. Your question is, I was thinking when you made this question, Paula didn't give me before the question.
No, yeah, it's all very, very spontaneous here.
I was thinking that at this moment that we are promoting the front of pack leveling in Mexico, it's a deputy in the Congress, a legislator, that is beginning to attract attention, creating a lot link with industry and working with industry, and it's a distract to our work. We at the beginning began to respond this person and say, no, this is I don't know in English, a peón en el ajedrez.
It's a piece in the game, right?
Yes, but these that are not important, so important, but when they respond with campaigns, you need to respond, but many times they are trying to distract you, from the important work that you are doing. And when I receive a lot of attacks, personal attacks in the media, and I have the choice. If I go to a legal case against the reporter that is saying something that is not true about my professional career, and distracting this, in a long process, and I not took in consideration.
But how do you make that decision? Because I think it can be a question like what to decide what is a distraction and what is not a distraction. I think that's.
I think you need to evaluate at which level is the confrontation, because it's a confrontation really, because all the policies recommended by the World Health Organization and by many other institutions around the world and inside our countries is to reduce the consumption of products high in sugar, salt, and fat. And this is a fight with the industry that is introducing these kind of products, because they don't want to reduce the sales of these products. They need to present each 3 months that they increase the profits, to the shareholders, and it's a conflict. It's like you mentioned, like the tobacco case. Is the same in alcohol.
And another thing that I was thinking about, because I mean we know, like from the public health side, the impact and the academic studies showing the good impact in terms of decreasing consumption of sugary beverages. But the way they are using the Mexico data, I'm sure in other countries in the region as well that are going through the same ask for policies, saying that Mexico didn't work. The fat tax in Denmark didn't work. I mean, they have like lots of like briefs and arguments saying that, well, WHO has given up supporting taxation because that's not effective. That's what they are using in the other countries that are trying to push for the same policies. How can we collectively respond to that?
I think that there are the narratives created by the industry through research paid by the industry. In Mexico, the soda industry pay 3 different research to the academic institutions, but very clear in the direction of the playbook, saying that one research say that the soda tax create jobs loss. The soda tax have impact in the poorest people, and the soda tax is not working in inside a health policy. Was very clear, how they pay this. But if you go to the independent research from the National Institute, from Public Health or from the University of Caroline, no, it's very clear that we have a reduction, not enough, no, and you need to consider that the investment from the industry on marketing when the soda tax passed was terrible. No, they increased the investment very, very strong.
So you exposed those figures. You
yes,
presented the figures of the
yes, but the soda tax resists this investment. But now the evaluation of the soda tax is not only in Mexico. You need to look what is happening in Philadelphia. 38% in soda consumption. No, on soda sales.
And the Philadelphia example, I think, is a great one because it's all about artificial sweeteners.
Yeah,
Because I think one thing that we have to keep in mind when you think about what could be done differently or not done differently, because that was the political situation back then, what was possible. But what would you do differently if you were like, could choose what type of soda tax would you pass? I mean, with regards to sugar and the artificial sweeteners.
To include soda light. No? Why? Because there are a lot of discussion. My personal perception is this non-caloric sweeteners have, we will know that this, and
it will come one day.
Many is coming about the health impacts. But something that not have any discussion is that this beverage that with non-caloric sweeteners create on children the addiction to sweetener beverage, and this is very bad. No, you are creating behavior, no, that have a great health impact.
And there was one thing that we actually borrowed from you, this big inflatable with diabetes, and we have actually used that in Brazil, and we received an intimidation letter from the Coca-Cola company. So I would like to, and actually it's, in a way it has worked because of the lawyers' analysis of the Brazilian legislation. Oh, perhaps you should not use it because of property rights, whatever. And we have not used it again. I mean, how would be the recommendation? How can we collectively risk? Because I want to use it again. Come on. They use it in Mexico. They use it in South Africa. Why can't we use it in Brazil? Yeah. So, I mean, how would you say that, any suggestion? How can we go about that? Because I think it's such a powerful image.
I can give you a personal. No, I think that something that we need to show is that these kind of companies that about, I don't know, more than 10 years ago, they take a compromise, no, compromiso en inglés es?
A commitment.
Commitment. No, with Margaret Chan when she was in front of the World Health Organization to not market any kind of products, no healthy products to kids below 12 years old. And they are doing all Christmas time, all this campaign with the Christmas tree, with Santa Claus, with the bears, no? And they can do everything. And we cannot say that if you drink this, you have a great risk to develop diabetes, no?
I think we had a similar situation in the sense that we're fighting for legislation to stop selling sugary beverages in schools. And then it passed in one of the commissions. It was not final yet. And then they launched a press release saying that the three biggest one in Brazil, the three major soda companies in Brazil, issued a press release saying, we are voluntarily stopping selling to schools, which is a big lie, but it actually does buy political will. I mean, from legislators say, oh, we don't need to regulate them. They are already doing it. What is your experience with this self-regulation and how to respond to that?
Yeah, the self-regulation is not working. We began to with the Young Cartel, Capos.
Yeah, that's a great one. I love it.
No, and the response from the industry, the Ministry of Health recognized that marketing to children have an impact on their health. And this was important. But after the industry came with the self-regulation that not have any nutritional criteria. No? Self-regulation is not working, no? And the problem, I think the great problem in all these policies is the influence, the interference of the industry in the policies, in the health policy. This is the great problem, no? That we have of the interference of the industry in the World Health Organization, no? At all levels, and more the interference in the regulatory institutions that we have in each country. The interference is very strong. No?
It makes me think because that goes all levels, also to the global level, and all this mantra about public-private partnerships and self-regulation. This is so strong nowadays when you think about the field of non-communicable diseases. And then it makes me think that as collectively, as a public health community, that we perhaps should invest a lot more in putting out some more evidence with regards to self-regulation does not work. Because that's something that I know that we say when we talk with a policymaker, but perhaps to having some more robust publications about whatever analysis of all sorts of self-regulation around the world. And I mean, would you think that, because I'm thinking about the challenge that we're having back home, and I'm sure Colombians and Peruvians and other countries are facing similar challenges, do you think that will be helpful for?
Yeah, we need to expose the situation. I think that Margaret Chan, no, that was the last director of the World Health Organization, was very important to expose this from her position in front of the World Health Organization. And many, the Lancet, the Journal of Public Health, no, many researchers. It's very interesting to look what happened with the researchers that work in this area. When I began to work in this area, also in Mexico, 12 years ago, when I talk with the researchers, they say, you are very radical.
Oh, yeah,
in front of the corporations. And now I say to these people, I don't give names at this moment, but I say, you are more radical now than us. Why? Because they began to do the publish the research, and all the time they look the interference of the industry at all levels, and also in the academic institutions. The money that they are giving, no, to academic institutions in this process that the government, no, is leaving, no, the science and the academic institutions and the researchers not have money, the money from the industry, no, they can buy science and they can neutralize at least researchers. No? And it's something that we are looking all the time in many different areas, and we need to research about it and to expose it, how this interference is at different levels.
And I think what you're saying now, it makes me think that the same happens at the policy-making level, because both globally and nationally, I mean, Margaret Chan is a great example because she didn't start from the beginning with that type of speech. No. In the beginning, she was much more open to like, wow, let's all be together, exactly like Tedros is right now. I mean, if you look at some of Tedros, Dr. Tedros' speeches, he talks about public-private partnerships are the only way.
You think
like, what?
You think
so
I
think it's a process when you start, and I have seen that in some other countries that they would think that we're very radical, the ones that pushing for the stronger policies. And at the moment that they start to try to implement a policy, they realize that, oh my God, it will never go through if I sit around the table with the industry. And we have seen that so clearly in tobacco control, because tobacco control is a reference. But it's not because from the beginning we just, all the policy was just like, we don't want the tobacco industry. It was part of a process that you realize along the way that if we had the industry around the table, we would never make for a decent policy that would make sense for public health. So it was, so I'm optimistic in that sense that as you have the experience with researchers.
Yeah, but inside the government, I'm not optimistic if we don't pressure enough to change their position at international and at national level. In the last administration, Mexico was terrible.
Oh yeah, no, I think we have to pressure always.
Yes, the front of pack leveling that we have in Mexico as mandatory, as part of the policy against obesity, is the leveling designed by the industry. And they never, the institution, the regulatory institution, never make any kind of relation, no, or invite the National Institute of Public Health, the Academy of Medicine of Mexico. No, they did it together with the industry. No, and everything. They create an observatory of the policies on obesity, and in the seat were more than 50% were people from the industry, and never invite the National Institute of Public Health, never invite us to be part of this table.
So
no?
what's the price of a bad policy? Because it makes me think that sometimes like all you have to do is try not to avoid a very bad policy, because it's a lot more difficult to change it after it has passed than to, I think that's something that many of the countries of the region, the recent Colombian experience, that you really sometimes what you need to do is to avoid the policy passing at all, because it can be even worse. And I think we have also experienced that with regards to smoke-free policies. Okay, if you're going to have a room that with ventilation and that's it, it's better not to have it. Like, so there's examples like that. What's your opinion on that? Having a mandatory policy that is bad for public health, isn't it more difficult to change it than just to push for a new one?
Yeah, I think that many times when you are working very strong in this, it's possible that you arrive to live in a circle, no? Involved in all these discussions. But for me, we need to return to the reality, no? And to have the testimonies of the people living in bad conditions related with the consumption of this. We have a lot of testimonies of poor people in Mexico, because the people that live the worst scenario is the poor people, no? That they don't have any kind of prevention, no? People that live with diabetes, no? We have testimonies of people that die, no? By diabetes, and they say, one example is we have a documental, Dulce Agonía, no? That we follow the life of one person, no? And this person at some moment with a nutritionist of our organization, they sit in a desk, and she began to ask, what do you eat and drink during the day? Oh, I eat 3 Cokes. I need this bread of Bimbo, no? And she began to take all the sugar, no, in a big cup, no? And this guy said, nobody say me nothing about that, no? And it's terrible. If we take distance, no, it's incredible that we don't have information in the case of sugar about the sugar that we are eating in the way that we can understand. And the worst case is on this kind of beverage, no? They try that we don't have information in the way that we can understand the information. The GDA leveling designed by the industry is in this direction, no? All the proposals that they are doing is to maintain the condition that we have at this moment, no? And it's criminal, no? And shows the power of the great corporation in this society that I link not only with health situation, it's with climate change, with everything. No, the big corporation took the control of this economy, no? And we need to, it's a fight also for democracy in a deep sense, no?
And I'm going to open for questions and answers from the floor, but what I'm reading from what you were saying, it's just like sometimes when you have a government that's not favorable of the policies, I mean, you always have to go back to basics, right? So to make, I mean, you always can do something even if you have a bad scenario. I think it's very true for us, many countries that we have more conservative governments, that it's harder to push forward the policies, but there is always a way out. So Teresa and you.
Thank you, Alejandro, for this wonderful conversation, and Paula. I'm Teresa from Brazil. We are now facing a huge battle towards a warning label. And we, of course, are facing the industry interference each day more strong. But I was exercising my mind, trying to think about the future. And based on your victories in Mexico and from our other colleagues from South Africa, and once we are keeping fighting for these policies against, in order to have more healthy food systems, we know that we are fighting against a evil big business model of ultra-processed foods. And of course, they will try forever to push back the policies. I wonder if you have some thinkings to share with you. How can in the future, because they will trying to push back in every country to every policies we are trying to put on, and how can you exercise thinking about the future? How can you promote the shifts, because our victory means this model have to fail. So some reflection about how can you globally move from a different model of business in food industry.
Okay.
Thank you.
Give to him. I'll give to Alejandro, and then I'll give to you, right? Or you want another question?
No.
Prefer to take this one first?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah, you can take
Okay.
another one.
Thanks very much. My name is David Clark. I work for UNICEF, and we've come kind of late to tackling the issue of childhood overweight
I'm
and
glad
obesity,
you're
but
doing
it's
it.
now a central part of what we're going to do. And one of the things that really has struck me is the fact that the industry seems to have been quite successful in persuading everyone that they only need to prohibit advertising to children up to 12 or sometimes 14. I mean, for us, a child, according to the Convention on the Rights of the Child, is up to 18. But their arguments are that at the age of 12 or 14, adolescents can begin to distinguish between commercial content and information, and therefore they don't need protected, which, if you take that argument to its logical conclusion, we would never need to protect adults from advertising. We wouldn't need anti-tobacco, or to protect mothers from the marketing of breast milk substitutes, for example. So it's completely ludicrous.
Yes.
And yet, it seems that they've won that one. Nobody seems to question it, and I think this is something we're really going to have to take on, and I wonder if you have any advice in that regard on how we might do that.
Okay, Alejandro.
First,
Very good point.
about the question of Teresa, I think that we need to follow to create new experience, like the soda tax, and to follow another experience from another country. So I think that Chile is a good reference. It's a step by step, but to have these warning levels, that the product that have one warning level not is going to school, is banned in school, is banned to have a marketing to children, that any product that have one of these warning levels could not have can't have any personage, character, or toy to invite the kids to buy the product. I think this is something. I know something about the project in the schools in California, about food literacy that they are doing. It's beginning a process, about what is happening in other countries. I think we need to take the good examples and give, because there are examples. There are ways to do something. The industry is changing in Chile. They need to change, And I agree with you because, for example, the marketing aimed to kids between 14 to 16, 17 years old, this kind of marketing have a very strong impact in the kids of 10 to 12 years old, because when you are in this age, you want to be like the other ones, that are biggest, And I think that we need to ban any kind of marketing, that is misleading, not only in information, but in the perception that they create about the product, the kind of image, that they use, the links that they create, about happiness drinking this kind of beverage. This needs to be banned,
Okay, Jennifer.
Actually, for you, Paula, did you publish the letter from Coca-Cola?
Yes.
Okay.
And I use it in presentations, and I show it there, I show everywhere, and I'm finding ways on how to use it with a censorship
I love
target on the inflatable next
and then
time.
I would suggest, we get a lawyer, a Brazilian lawyer later
Yes,
to see
yes.
if there's a real.
Yeah, I know. I did it. I did it.
Yeah.
I did it. That's why I got a note. Well, do it.
Okay, get
Okay.
American lawyers.
Can you introduce yourself? Sorry, I
I'm
just said.
Jennifer Palmer from NYU. I'm a public health lawyer.
Okay.
And I'm actually looking into this issue for the U.S. So
All
that's
right.
what's inspiring the question.
Okay.
But,
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Are there any more questions? I mean, UNICEF, we are so happy that you are finally talking very clearly about the 4 policy areas that are so important for food policy issues. So thank you. I
Yeah.
think that's going to be very, very
And
important.
you take care
helpful.
because
Yeah.
you did it publicly, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
You will wait in these weeks which companies will try to,
And
to talk very friendly with you.
And
Yes,
we could,
it's-
and I think,
Experience with the breast milk substitutes.
yeah, okay, that's a good
yes.
experience to have to build on.
Yes.
I have one more question there, and I think that's, yeah, you introduce yourself, please.
Thanks. My name's Rob Moody from the University of Melbourne. Came here especially for this talk. I like the idea of the use of mosquitoes and the analogy with mosquitoes. And one of the things we've been thinking about now is the fact that these companies, these supranational corporations, they're not multinationals, actually above the state. Now they are the vectors of these diseases.
Okay.
Yeah.
Now with mosquitoes, we monitor them. States monitor them. Countries monitor them.
Yeah.
We should be monitoring
Absolutely.
the activities of these supranational corporations in every country by their national public health surveillance system. So I just want to put that idea to you. What do you think of it? And because we now, I guess, are in the process of trying to develop a schema so this can at least be introduced. I think it'll take a long time for it to happen. And just quickly, the other thing that really strikes me is always, and you said 75,000 amputations a year?
Amputations.
Yeah.
Amputations.
We had the global campaign on landmines. That was frankly all about losing limbs. We now have a situation where many more limbs are being lost to diabetes than have ever been lost to landmines. We've never actually made that connection. I don't know whether we should or not,
Yeah,
but
why
it's
not?
pretty damning. Sorry, but that's...
Yeah, this data about the amputations came from one official in 2013, and never appeared after, no. But we have many testimonies, also from doctors, that did this amputation, and they say,
Finish.
I don't want to work more in this area because I want to work in prevention, not in amputation. No, people that cannot live doing this work all days. No?
We have one last question. It has to be brief. Introduce yourself, and then we'll have final remarks.
I am Esperanza from the Educar Consumidores Colombia. I would like to ask both of you, in the times of the post-through, what could I do for putting in the middle of the public discussion the real through?
The pós-verdade. Sobre a pós-verdade. It's in the times of fake news, for example. The question about how to deal with, how to navigate with this scenario where we have, like, I don't know, in Spanish and Portuguese we say post-truth or fake news universe. I mean, you know it very well in the US, right? You should know more than many of us. So how to navigate in that scenario? That was how can we navigate in that scenario? Well, okay, I'll start and then I'll give to you and then we have to finish. Well, it is not easy, but I think also when things become very critical, and that's the optimist advocate that lives inside me, or else I will never be an advocate. When things get really bad, when it's so horrible, I think we start getting to a tipping point to start dealing with the issue. And I see that many parallels, like totally agree with you that we should monitor the industry. And we did that for tobacco, and that's actually, it is a policy that countries need to follow through, and I think the same needs to be true about the other ones. And I think it's a process, and I think that many countries are discussing ways of dealing with that. But it's definitely a huge challenge we have nowadays in terms of like what goes out that people want to believe this is true or not, and evidence being so discredited, science being so much discredited. I think it's a huge challenge that we have collectively. You know what? Have your final words on everything now, Alejandro.
All the time, you need to look at which level they want to distract you, when it's important to respond. And for us, all the time is with using science, with using data, with using reference to academical institutions, and when it's something that is against you, or against your organization, with information that is not true, if it's important, you need to respond, but many times not directly. I think it's important that other people respond, in your name, to not involve in this dialogue or in this confrontation.
Well, thank you. I'm supposed to close it now. Corey, thank you very much also for the viewers. Thank you, Alejandro.
Thank you. Thank you both for a wonderful conversation. And on behalf of Vital Strategies, thank you all for coming. Thanks to all of you who are on live stream. Sorry I didn't say hello to you in the beginning, but thanks for joining us. And we're going to have another Vital Talk, which you have to come all the way back for, in September. It's going to be on alcohol. So we're starting to have a more public conversation about that topic. And there will be other wonderful topics in the future, so you can always dial in online if you want to listen to any of the Vital Talks discussions.